All right, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Rewriting My Story with Dr. Mondo. And I'm so excited tonight to have just a very, very amazing, inspirational guest, Adam Sud. He will be with us here tonight. A little bit of background on Adam. Adam had an amazing transformation story that began 5 years ago. He's going to tell you all. And as you know, with this broadcast, this is a broadcast where we are inviting you into a different conversation. This is not a conversation about just weight loss. It's about transforming your life. So with that, Adam Sud, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm good. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Tonight, I think there's so many different ways that we could have this conversation, so many directions we could go. What I'd love to do, if you're up for it, it would be, I got a chance to do some research for my dissertation on drastic weight loss. Got a chance to work with some former contestants of The Biggest Loser. And as a licensed therapist, I'm using a lot of that model to inform my work and doing continued research. There's these 8 stages I have. And I want to kind of take you through that because I think what it does is it provides us a chance to really tell your story from beginning, middle, and end to, end being current.
Sure.
So if you're up for that, yeah, I want to kind of just go through some of these 8 stages. It's a great way too for people out there to get exposed a little bit to some of these stages that are really common. This is essentially the psychological roadmap of what you're going to go through when you lose weight. So yeah, if you're up for that, that's what we'll do.
Let's do it.
Cool. Well, great. So the first thing that I always look at my theory and when I'm looking at research, is to look at wanting to know, if we're talking about rewriting your story, we have to know what your starting point is. It's kind of like the ground zero. So stage 1 in the model is know your story, but it's what was life like, and transport yourself if you can for the viewers here tonight. What was life like before you lost the weight? What was your emotional state like? What was your habits like? What was your day-to-day like? What were your relationships like? Paint a picture for me of that.
Sure. So for a lot of different reasons, I ended up a drug addict in high school, going into college. I was addicted to Adderall. This was prescribed to me by a doctor, and I, for various reasons, became highly addicted by the time I graduated high school and went to college. And unfortunately, when you're addicted to a substance like stimulant or any kind of substance, your tolerance goes up and you need more and more of it. And that's what happened to me in college. And my drug became more important to me than my friends, than the entire reason I went to college in the first place was to discover who I was as an adult. And I started to buy from friends, and I dropped out of college when I was a sophomore, and I told my friends and family that it was for a job back in Austin, Texas. And I did have a job, and I was studying film, and I had a job in the film industry. But
Interesting.
The real reason I dropped out of college was because I wanted to be back in Austin, where I knew all of the friends I knew that would sell to me, and knew the doctors that I could start to scam, or doctor shop as it's called. That's where you have multiple doctors prescribing you the same medication without them knowing about each other. It's a felony. It's very illegal.
But it's part of the addiction, right? If anyone's watching who's lived in an addiction or is living in addiction, they know this is part of the addiction.
Yeah, and that's what I ended up doing. I came back. I went to college, like I said, with all the intention of discovering myself, and dropped out of college, came home to Austin, and became a criminal drug addict.
Wow.
I was shopping, I was forging prescriptions, I was altering prescriptions, I was buying on the street, I was stealing, I was selling, I was doing everything I could to just get more and more and more of this drug. And at the same time, my relationship with my family became incredibly strained. I was in constant fights with my parents. I avoided them at all costs except to borrow money because Adderall is a very expensive. I ended up developing an addiction to fast food because I started to become, and there's a quote that I like that says, nothing records the effects of a sad life so graphically as the human body.
Mm.
And I
Tells the story, yeah.
When I say I was a fast food addict, let me explain to you what my day looked like.
Yeah, what does that mean? Because people use that term or that terminology loosely. What does that mean to you?
So my day would start like this. I'd get up in the morning and I'd go to a place called Torchy's Tacos, and I would get 4 or 5 potato, egg, and cheese breakfast tacos.
Mm-hmm.
My first lunch, I would go to a place called Whataburger. It's a fast food joint.
Been there before. I'm familiar.
And I would get a honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich meal.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd go for my second lunch, I'd go to McDonald's, get 2 supersized double quarter pounder meals. Then for dinner, I would order an extra large pizza from Papa John's with a side order of the chicken strips with the honey mustard dipping sauce. Then at about 2 in the morning, I would go back to Whataburger for 4 of their breakfast on a bun sandwiches with sausage, so the sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich meal. On top of that, I would drink about 15 sodas per day.
Wow.
So on days that I was eating 5 to 10,000 calories of fast food.
Yeah, my gosh.
When I say I'm a drug addict, the average prescription for Adderall is anywhere between 20 to 40 milligrams. So we'll just call it 30 milligrams.
Yeah.
By the last several years of my addiction, I was doing 450 milligrams in a 24-hour period.
450. I mean, and when you tell a doctor that, what is their react? Are they surprised that you're alive, or is that just? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I have yet to meet a doctor. I have yet to meet a fellow addict that isn't just blown away by that number. And I didn't know how. When you're in it, you're just in it, and it's not about how many pills you're taking. It's only afterwards I was like, wow, I was going through a bottle of 90 30 milligram pills in 6 days. How many pills a day?
But there's no reflection happening in all of that. This is just like your day to day. And would you vary? You just laid that out really clear. Would you very much? It sounds like your brain likes patterns, right? Which I think we find a lot with folks that are drawn to both healthy and unhealthy addictions. But did you find that would be your go-to move every day, or would there be some variation? Was there some other fast food restaurants mixed in, or was that like the protocol?
For the most part, that was protocol. Every now and then I'd be like, I want to go to Dairy Queen, or I want to go to Sonic or whatever.
But for the most part, your brain was like, go right back to the well.
Back to it, yeah. And I would do that 450 milligram things of Adderall per day for 6 days straight.
Ooh.
Without sleeping, and during those days, pretty much without eating.
Without sleeping. Amazing. Wow.
And by the end of it, I would be in the throes of the beginning stages of a drug-induced psychosis. And I would start to develop these really intense obsessive-compulsive tics, one of which was I didn't like to have the hair touch the back of my ear. And I can recall one night where I was up all night, of course, brushing my hair forward and back away from my ear so hard, nonstop, that in the morning when I went to the bathroom, I hadn't even realized that I had brushed all the hair off the side of my head completely bald.
Oh my gosh. What was it like for you to see that? And even in the midst of your addiction, like, was there, yeah.
It was like, well, just luckily, at the time I had longer hair, so I just was like, all right, I'll just brush it down and cover it over. It wasn't even a recognition of like,
that says a lot, right?
And
that tells the story.
I barely bathed. I barely, I don't remember how. I could probably count on 2 hands how many times I would brush my teeth in the course of like 6 months. I was, like I said, getting in fights with my dad, and I had no self-worth. I mean, it was just days of utter self-hatred, and I would go to a place called Casual Male XL because I had a 50-inch waist, and
I'm familiar with it too, right? Yeah, Casual Male XL, 50-inch waist.
Yeah, and I would come home from this place just utterly humiliated by the fact that I had to walk in there, and then not only that, my size wasn't the smallest size. I would go to my bathroom, I'd take off my shirt, and I'd stand in the mirror, and I'd look at myself, and I'd stare at my body. I had, stretch marks. I had these weird sores and lumps and rashes from not bathing and from, that were developing under the folds of my body. And I'd look at this form that was in front of me, and I would stare at it, and I would just say to myself in the mirror over and over again, I hate you. And every time I said I hate you, I would literally hit myself as hard as I could, over and over, until my stomach was covered in red welts that basically just became one giant red mark.
Oh my gosh.
I'd start crying, I'd collapse to the floor. I was 30 years old, and I had already started to develop erectile dysfunction, which I know at the time is the first indication of heart disease in men.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
but you didn't know that at the time. It just
no, I didn't. Yeah, I was just like, well, here's another part of me that's broken. It was at about that time that I realized that maybe life wasn't worth it anymore. And it wasn't until last year that I finally admitted this to people, to my family, and most specifically to my twin brother, who so when I say that I'm closer to him than anybody on this planet, I don't mean that in a way to diminish how close I am with the rest of my family. It's just there's something very special about being an identical twin.
I've heard this.
And he and I have had our bouts with depression growing up. Sometimes it got really bad, and there were times when we said, hey, you know what, no matter how bad it gets, neither of us is ever going to commit suicide, because it means that the other will do the same.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Because you're so interconnected.
So interconnected, but that night, that whole pact that we made left. And I'm sitting in my filthy hoarder-like apartment, popping pill after pill, saying I'm a college dropout, I'm a drug addict, I've blown everything I have on drugs and drug-fueled shopping for nonsense. My body's breaking down, I'm 30 years old, I have erectile dysfunction, I feel terrible, I hate myself, what's the point anymore? And I just took a handful of pills and took them.
What kind of pills?
It was Adderall and painkillers. Just grabbed a bunch that were on the table and said, if this is it, this is it. Threw them in my mouth, swallowed them. Started to have a panic attack after I realized what happened, what I had done. And that panic attack caused me to buckle over and throw up. And my heart was racing so bad that I literally just passed out.
Oh my God. Was anyone in the house with you?
No, I was hyperventilating, and I passed out, fell face forward. I woke up, I don't know how, it could have been a minute later, it could have been 2 hours later, I don't really remember, but I woke up in a puddle of my own vomit, surrounded by fast food garbage and empty pill bottles, surrounded by my drugs and everything that was killing me, and realized that, my life was going down, it was heading in one direction, and it wasn't going to be me that was going to be affected. I was going to be dead, but it was going to be my parents, my younger sister, my identical twin brother, spending the rest of their lives trying to figure out why I needed to eat and drug myself to death. And then having them ask themselves and blame themselves for the rest of their lives, thinking that there was something that they could have or should have done to stop me, because only an addict really knows that there's nothing you can say to get me to stop unless I really want to. And I said, I'm not going to let that happen. I also realized that since I didn't die, I should take this opportunity and recognize that no matter how far you fall, everybody has an opportunity for a comeback. You just have to decide if you want to. And I picked up the phone and I called. I blamed my dad for a lot of things. And that blame turned into hatred, and that hatred turned into a lot of arguments and fights and really negative behavior directed towards him. There were I can't recall how many nights there were when I would leave my parents' house and having said things to them that I will never repeat. I don't ever want to have those words come out of my mouth again in regards to my parents. And then storming out of their house, and now thinking, how long were they up that night saying, do you think that those horrible things he just said to us are the last things we're ever going to hear him say?
What a thought to be left with.
Picking up the phone that night, and the first person I call is my dad's cell phone. And I didn't say I attempted suicide. I didn't mention drug addiction. I just said, Dad, I need help. And this person that I hated on more than anyone in the world didn't question me. He didn't judge me. He just said, come home. Your mother and I just want to help you.
Oh my God. It's like the prodigal son, man. He loved you so much that is amazing.
I can't imagine like the amount of strength it must take for a mother and father to witness what I was going through for 10 years and then have me blame them for it and say, we're just going to be there for him. And
what did that love do for you? I mean, because there's a shift happening in that moment for you, even on the ground there, it felt like, and just witnessing your story of like, there's a moment where you're so into this selfish place of the addiction, and it doesn't matter what anyone can say, and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks or feels, but there's this moment where you start thinking more about your family, and you start thinking about the impact this is going to have on them, and then to have this moment with your parents where they welcome you in open arms despite all the things that were said. That must have been a transformative moment for you.
I was expecting well, we've been telling you this for years type of talk to happen, and it wasn't that at all. It wasn't that. It was just, here we are for you. And, we don't care about who you are. We love who you are as a person. Let us help you with your behavior type of deal.
Amazing.
And,
amazing.
It's 2 weeks later that they went with me to check into rehab. And I went to rehab.
Where'd you go for rehab? Yeah.
To Sierra Tucson in Tucson, Arizona. I checked in. I was at my heaviest. The heaviest I ever saw on the scale was 320 pounds. Now I know I got bigger than that, but I never looked at a scale after I saw that 320 because I just didn't. I never wanted to ever see 350 on the scale.
Mm-hmm. Because that would have for you? That would have meant something mentally.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
320 is correctable, but 350 is, that was just this idea,
We do that with numbers, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I checked into rehab. In the first 24 hours of rehab, whether you check yourself in or you're there because someone else forced you to go, is very, very uncomfortable. You're searched. You're strip searched. They search your belongings. As a person who was very ashamed of himself and ashamed of his body, standing naked in front of two nurses, having to have them look you over and examine all these wounds on my legs that weren't healing for reasons I didn't understand at the time, and ask, what's all this about? Like I'm not a human. It was very dehumanizing. It made me feel like a criminal. But there's
especially after what you mentioned, like you said, that you were really aware of how much self-hatred and lack of self-worth there was, that you would sit in front of the mirror. I mean, to go from a position like that must have been such a vulnerable place for you.
It was the last thing I wanted to do, was to have someone tell me how bad I was physically, how far I was from okay physically. And but like I said, there's a purpose to it. One, they need to make sure you're not bringing anything into rehab that you're not supposed to. And that goes far beyond just substance abuse and substances. It's clothing that may be triggering to others. There are gambling addicts, so no sports logos are allowed and things like that. Things I wasn't aware of, and I expect. And then you're subjected to a lot of biomedical testing. They want to find out, are you dealing with anything you're not aware of? Substance abuse addicts are exposed to a lot of high-risk behavior, and that high-risk behavior can result in disease and infection and things like this. And so they need to find out, what are you dealing with that you may not already be aware of? And 48 hours after I checked in, and I got a call from the doctor. He says he needs to see me, so I come into his office and I sit down, and he says, Adam, you didn't mention that you're a type 2 diabetic.
You didn't mention because you didn't know?
And in all arrogance, I said, well, because I'm not.
Oh.
And said, we need to have a seat. You need to have a seat. We have to have a talk. Your blood sugar, I don't remember the specific number. I know it was above 350. I know it wasn't 400.
What's healthy? Give viewers any
80 and 100. And you really want to be 90 or below, 80 to 90, somewhere in there. And mine was between, let's say for the sake of argument, 350, between 300 and 400. And my A1C was somewhere between 9 and 12. Like I said, I don't remember, and they don't have my records anymore. And not only that, my blood pressure, my systolic blood pressure, which is the top number, was over 200. And my diastolic, which is the bottom number, was over 100. It was so high that they made it mandatory that for the first week of rehab, I had to have my blood pressure and heart rate monitored every morning before I was allowed to leave for breakfast. I would wake up in the morning with a resting heart rate of over 120. And if they were saying, you reach 140, we have to call this a medical emergency. So when it got down to 110, through a lot of calming techniques that they helped me learn the first week, I was able to leave to go to breakfast because I couldn't wake up unless I would wake up in almost a medical emergency. That's how bad it was.
And are you thinking, Adam, at this point that, I'm just thinking in real time,
yeah.
This is all in the same week, maybe all in the same period of days, right? Like, for you to go through that much, were there periods and moments where here you are, whether it's during the strip search, during the doctor information about the diabetes, was there a moment where you thought to yourself, I'm out, like it's so much easier just to go back the other way?
I really wish I knew that for sure. I'm sure there were moments where I was like, this is not what I signed up for. I definitely did not think I was having to go through all of this. But at the same time, about a year before that, my dad, who has been involved with Whole Foods Market for a long time, saw an opportunity to help me. Whole Foods Market in 2009 had partnered with Rip Esselstyn and Engine 2.
Yeah.
And had created the Engine 2 Total Health Immersion Program, where you go for a week to a place and you learn about how if you adopt a completely whole food plant-based lifestyle, you can reverse chronic Western disease and make yourself heart attack proof. And you spend a week there, all the food is prepared for you, it's all you can eat. They have, all the top doctors and motivational speakers. And my dad came to me and said, Adam, will you please go? I'll get you in, will you go? And I said yes, because at the time I didn't really want to go to this thing, but I felt if I said yes, then he would continue to keep giving me money. That's I'm thinking, what can I do just to benefit my, selfish needs and not, whatever.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
And I went as a drug addict. I was using drugs when I was there. I can remember being in my room with all my drugs laid out on the desk for the days that I was there. I was going to do this many drugs in the morning, this much drugs in the afternoon, just to, to deal with the fact that I was there and I didn't want to be there, right? But I went to every single lecture, and it all made sense. Listening to Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn explain in very real terms how you can absolutely reverse chronic Western disease by adopting a whole food plant-based diet.
And for someone that was, I imagine, if your self-worth is as low as it was, hopeless, what was that like to hear that message of you can reverse this?
It was empowering, but at the same time, my drug addiction was so strong that I didn't want to give up anything. But it made a lot of sense to me also as from an ethical standpoint. I'm one of those self-proclaimed animal lovers who ate meat, And I was saying that I could be the healthiest version of myself and never commit any kind of harm to another living creature. This was speaking to me on another level. And the last night I was there, they had a motivational speaker named Dick Beardsley. And Dick Beardsley is he's a record-holding marathoner. He was in one of the greatest marathon races of all time with Alberto Salazar. And he talked about how after his career as a runner, he suffered a series of really horrible accidents, life-threatening accidents on his farm, and ended up addicted to pain. And I listened to this guy talk about himself as a drug addict. I listened to the way he talked, and listened to him talk about how he treated other people and how he moved through the world as an addict. And I was like, man, he might as well be talking about me. It's the same story.
Wow.
And I thought, there's anybody who I could walk up to and for the first time ever say, I'm a drug addict and I need help, and no, I won't be judged, it's this person.
Wow.
Let me walk up to him and say, I need help. And I remember after the talk, he was sitting at his table signing autographs, and it was like I was glued to the floor. I tried to walk over there. I tried to talk, and my voice wouldn't work. And I was just begging myself to do it, but I chose the path of fear that night. I had an opportunity to finally admit and make some real headway and spare myself another 2 years of serious misery. But I chose the path of fear, and I left that night a drug addict because I wasn't desperate enough.
And that's a good point. I want to just point that out because there's some people probably listening. I know there's comments flooding in about people resonating with your story. I know you're probably very familiar with the stages of change model, and in the stages of change model, again, it takes this momentum to move from denial, pre-contemplation, contemplation. There are stages you move through before you eventually are ready to take action, and it sounds like this was one of those key moments in kind of like your pre-contemplation or stage before you got ready to do something.
Think and say, at least in my head, I'm a drug addict and I know it.
Yes, yeah.
And unfortunately, it would be another 2 years until I attempted suicide by drug overdose, and then that was what ended up getting me into rehab. But in rehab, this doctor was saying, you have diabetes, you have heart disease, you have erectile dysfunction, here's your medications. And I knew that all of this was my fault. I couldn't blame anybody for it. I could blame whoever I wanted for my addiction. I could say, oh, I'm not really that much of an addict. I just have a really high tolerance because I'm such a tough guy, that whole nonsense. But I could not argue with the fact that I was a type 2 diabetic. There was the number. There was my blood sugar. I was obese. There's my weight. I had heart disease. Here's my numbers. This was all my fault, and I had to take responsibility for the first time. And I left that doctor's office crushed. And I walked back to my dorm, and I picked up the phone, and again I called my dad and said, I don't know what to do, but I don't know how to say this, but, because I was embarrassed to say it to him. I'm a type 2 diabetic. I have heart disease. I don't know what to do. And he said, this was maybe the most brilliant thing I think my dad has ever said to me in the way that he worded this. He said, okay, Adam, you know what, let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's just say that you're a type 2 diabetic. Let's just say you have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. You know that by adopting this plant-based diet, everything you learned at Engine 2, you can reverse all of it. There's something about your life that you don't like, and you can do something about it, then you don't have a problem. And he helped me realize in that moment
that's powerful.
Since I was the cause of my problems, I get to be the solution. And that was my goal. I said, from this day forward, I'm going to make it my goal to reverse these chronic Western diseases. And in order to do that, I need to stay sober. Now, rehab, I didn't have a lot of control over what I ate, but I moved into sober living after rehab. And while I was in sober living, I transitioned to the plant-based diet, which wasn't easy because this place stocked its kitchen with everything that was killing me.
Like what?
Eggo waffles, Doritos.
So you can't wear in a sports logo, but they can put this food in the fridge, right? That Doritos, that's crazy.
Sober living, which is like a halfway house.
Oh, got you, right. Yeah, so, okay, yeah, it makes sense.
But
doesn't make sense, but makes sense, yeah.
I remember standing in that kitchen going, you know what, I could probably leave here, 3 months down the line, a year down the line, however long it takes me. I could leave sober. But if I live this way, if I keep eating this way, I'm going to be dead in 5 years. I can leave sober, but I'll never leave healthier. And
So from the beginning, Adam, you really knew that this was about, again, if I looked at a transcript of your language you're using, I don't hear weight loss a lot. I hear a lot about this long-term change. I hear a lot about health. But you really had this perspective along the journey, even early on, which is amazing to me to see that you had this perspective of long-term change.
yeah, that's what it was. It was tough for me in the beginning. And I read a book by Doug Lyle called The Pleasure Trap.
Great book.
And that book really helped me understand what I believe is the inevitable truth or invariable truth to all lifestyle change and recovery. That I had to get up every day and be comfortable being uncomfortable. And in order to do that, I needed to know why I was going to do that every single day, right? So I was overweight, and I didn't want to be overweight. Great. Okay, so anybody who, I would say most people who are over 300 pounds don't want to be over 300 pounds and probably would like to lose weight. That's not why I was doing it.
Yeah.
I had type 2 diabetes. I didn't want type 2 diabetes. I guarantee you anybody with type 2 diabetes doesn't want it. That's not why I was doing it.
So it's deeper than that.
It's deeper than that. And I also didn't want to die. Well, I guarantee you most people don't want to die. Why not? It's not about fear. I had to figure out what it was about my life that I loved enough to be willing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to experience it more completely.
Wow. If someone's watching, please write that all out and then throw it into quotes and meme it, because that's amazing. Amazing stuff. You have to figure, okay, yeah, I'm just taking that all in. Amazing. Keep going.
For me, it was, I wanted to finally understand what it was to be the person that I knew I could be for my parents, to have a real relationship with my parents and find out who they really were. Because I had this idea of them that wasn't true. It was based on anger and fear and resentment towards life. I wanted to understand who they really were. I wanted to understand who I really was and be the person I believe I deserved to be. That's why I was willing to get up every single day and be comfortable with being uncomfortable until eventually I'd wake up one day and this lifestyle wouldn't be so difficult. And then eventually I'd wake up and I would actually look forward to it. I knew from reading The Pleasure Trap that that day was coming, that there was going to be a shift in the dopamine response in my brain that allowed me to actually enjoy this. If you're a human, this shift happens. It has to. I knew it. And that's why.
How long does it, to educate people, how long does it typically take, you think, the shift?
The consensus is it takes about 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks till it's not a chore anymore.
And what is the shift? Explain that maybe too. Like, what do you notice differently? You know, people hear dopamine. That's stuff that okay. But yeah, what is the shift that you really noticed in day to day?
When I transitioned to the plant-based diet, I was eating plant-based foods that I didn't dislike them, but they didn't make me feel comfortable, right? They didn't give me something that I needed from a substance in order to feel okay with my existence on this planet, in my existence in life. There was a feeling I had when I would come home from McDonald's with 3 burgers in a bag, and I would go into my dark apartment and lay down on the couch and get under the covers and just start eating one. And it was like I was getting hugged by somebody that was saying, I don't care. These new foods didn't do that for me. Even though I still enjoyed how they tasted, it didn't make me feel comfortable. And then it's about 2.5, 3 weeks until it's just food at that point. And then eventually, I'd say it's probably a month or so for that when you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to have oatmeal this morning.
Isn't that crazy?
It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And this really helped me understand that I had to make a daily decision between what I wanted now and what I wanted most.
What I wanted now and what I wanted most. I had to make a daily decision about what I wanted now and what I wanted most. How are they different?
So I would wake up and really want to eat a cheeseburger and really want to do drugs. But what I want most is to be sober and healthy. So I'm not that. I'm going to eat that oatmeal instead of a bowl of Fruity Pebbles.
So there was this acceptance for you, and this is big for the viewer. There's this acceptance of you about the fact that it wasn't about getting to a point where I mean, as you went along, maybe that's part of your story, but you just accepted early on, like, there's a part of me that still wants the burger. There's a part of me that still wants to go live the old lifestyle because it's comfortable. My brain knows
course.
that pattern better than it knows this new uncomfortable pattern that I'm starting to create and forge. And I think it's really important for people to hear that again, early on, you have to accept that, again, what do I want now? What do I want most? I love that because most is pointing back to your why.
Most is your why.
Mm.
You know, discipline is the decision between what you want now and what you want most. And what you want most is why you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. And I can remember it was about, I think within 1 month, my blood sugar dropped from over 300 to about 120.
Whoa, that's crazy.
By 3 months, my blood sugar, now I'm on the highest amount of metformin that you can take before they put you on insulin, which is 2,000 milligrams a day. I was on 7 to 8 prescription medications when I left rehab for various conditions of blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, depression, mood stabilizers. I was on sleeping medications. I was on ADHD medications. And so eating this diet and doing the highest amount of oral medicine for type 2 diabetes, my blood sugar was going down into the 60s, which doesn't feel good. So I just threw away the medication and said, I'm done with this, which I don't advise anybody to do. Do not do that.
Consult with a physician, right? Yeah, consult with a physician. But that was what you chose to do because why?
Well, it just, I knew that that's what was going on. You know, I had read the books. I really just immersed myself into the literature and the science and understood this. And I made an appointment to go see my endocrinologist. And I went to go see him at month 4. And they did a finger prick, and my blood sugar was 82. And he says, wow, the medication's working. And I looked at him and said, you know, I don't think that that's what it is. And he said, well, no. This is great. We're going to take your medication down by half. Well, I don't really want to do that either. What do you mean you don't want to take your medication down by half? You don't want to get off your medication and take less of it? I said, no, I haven't been taking it for a month. I've been eating this whole food plant-based diet, and that's what's doing this. And he looked at me. He said, oh, well, that makes sense. And now look, I can understand even my reaction in the beginning, like, well, if you knew that this was a possibility, that I can reverse type 2 diabetes by adopting a plant-based diet, why did you not recommend it to me in the first place? Now I also look back at it and say, who was he treating when I first walked in his door? I was treating a person who had 1 month of sobriety. I was an angry, entitled, arrogant, spoiled drug addict who was very, very sick. Maybe he was thinking, let's get him on this medication. Let's get him controlled on this medication, and then we can talk to him about dietary changes to where he doesn't need it anymore. But regardless of whatever his intentions were, I stood up and said, Doctor, thank you so much for your services, but I no longer need them. And I walked out of his office, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt something that I hadn't felt, and that was self-worth.
Whoa, that moment right there, that was your defining moment of self-worth.
And for me, that self-worth made me feel like I was worth saving.
Wow.
Because I had been struggling with my emotional recovery. I was going to therapy and IOP. I was going to an intensive outpatient therapy program 4 days a week for 4 hours a day, fighting with these therapists who were trying to get me to accept that I was this angry, entitled, arrogant, spoiled kid. In a typical angry, entitled, arrogant, spoiled fashion, I'd throw up the middle finger and start walking down Santa Monica Boulevard. And I came home one day and I said, what is going on with me? Why am I able to make such great shifts in my physical health, yet I can't make any changes in my emotional health? What is the difference here? And I thought, I accepted that I don't know how to live as a physical person. The only way I knew how to live was killing me, and I didn't know any other way to do it. Engine 2 said, do this. If you do it, your life will get better. I just did it. I didn't question it. It wasn't easy, and my life got better. What if I walked into therapy and approached it from the same mindset? What if I walked in and said, all right, you guys want me to believe that I'm this angry, entitled, arrogant, spoiled kid? Fine.
I'll own it. Yeah.
No any other way to move through this world. This is how I protect my ego. This is all I know.
Yep. That's your context here. Yeah, exactly.
Tell me what to do. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but I can't keep doing this anymore. I can't keep fighting you. And from that day forward, my life got better, and it helped me realize that I had 2 problems in life. I didn't know how to live as an emotional or physical person. Everything else was a result of those two things. And once I accepted those two things, I was able to change everything about my life. And within a year, I lost 100 pounds and was off of every single medication I was put on in rehab.
My
And as of
gosh.
today, I've lost 170 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
I'm now a speaker for Engine 2. I love running. I feel like this. I get to do these amazing things. I get to meet incredible people like Tim Kaufman, who I know is on right now, and Josh Lajani, and I get to work with Rip Esselstyn, and I'm friends with people like Rich Roll. I feel like this little fish that's swimming in a big pond that has the opportunity to swim with some really amazingly big fish.
But you know what, man? Going back to the whole self-worth thing and walking, you absolutely deserve it. Because I can tell you, just getting a chance to meet you and hear your story, you are, whether you recognize it or not, you are one of those big fish too, Adam, without a doubt. Because your story is absolutely amazingly inspiring. Yeah, and just, I'm taken aback. You're one of those big fish, though.
Well, I'll tell you this. I know there's a few things that I've learned over the course of the last 5 years. One is gratitude. I am grateful for everything that I've gone through. I am so grateful that I was ever a drug addict. I'm so grateful that I was ever over 320 pounds. I'm grateful that I was ever a type 2 diabetic and had erectile dysfunction, because all of those things were necessary for me to become the person that I am today. The other thing is, I'm a really good addict. I'm a great drug addict. I was the best drug addict. If I needed drugs, I knew who to scam, I knew who to cheat. I am very, very good at going at 110% at things I'm passionate about.
I was going to say, so there's something to be harnessed there.
Yeah.
Are you harnessing that the same way in a positive direction now?
I am a plant-based addict.
And that's the name of your group or your page. Yes. Tell people more.
Yeah. So, I just think that addiction is just passion. So I think positive addiction is passion, because the difference is my old addictions, my destructive addictions, were creating disease, self-hatred, and had me living in a world that was about that big, and it existed inside a dark quarter-like apartment where I was literally on the floor dying from self-loathing and from disease. This constructive addiction, this passion for plants and life, has created a world that's bigger than I could ever have imagined. I'm connected to people that I could never have believed I would ever be a part of. Everything about the way that I live my life is different. My certainties about the world, the way that I move through the world, the way that I interact with people, and the way that they perceive me. It's just, I'm the same person, but I'm the authentic version of it.
All those other things were covering up the layers of the authenticity that is now being exposed.
The other thing is, there's a great quote that says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." If I get up every single day and I prepare a meal on a plate that is about self-care, that is about self-love, that is in itself an act of self-care and self-love. And if I get up every single day and I'm committed to my recovery, and I get up every single day and I could be of service to somebody else, then at the end of that day, I am a happy, healthy, sober person who is of service to other people. And that's who I want to be in this world. And so that's the way that I approach life on a daily basis. Get up, prepare a meal on a plate that says to myself, I love you and I care about you as a physical person, and that's why I'm eating this way.
And here's a guy, folks, too, if you're listening out here, and I know we gotta jump to questions because there's a ton of them.
Okay.
Here's a guy that went from not having self-worth, as many of you may be resonating with now or at a certain point in your journey, and reclaiming self-worth, but not just reclaiming self-worth, actually looking from every moment in the day to live out that new version of his story. And this is what's so fascinating. We talk about this again on the show, is that when you are rewriting your story, it's not like you're just swapping one in for another. He's still the same guy in a lot of ways. He just harnessed his strengths. So what are your strengths right now that you have that you're not viewing as strengths because you're utilizing them towards your addictions? You're utilizing them in areas to fuel your food addiction. You're utilizing them in areas to block you from the life that you want, but how could you harness those strengths and take those into rewriting your story? And Adam is just, man, he is absolutely laying it out for us. Really quickly, I want to say this, and this is just like a in the moment thing. We'll figure out the schedules and stuff like that. Is there any way that you would be up for coming back and doing like a part 2? Because there's so much more I want to get into with you. Is that something we could try to work out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, because I'm looking here. You guys take a look. These are the things I wanted to, cover the stages. Number 1 stage, know your story. If you're familiar with my program, some of you have done it on drmondo.org. Know your story. Do we know Adam's story? Yeah, Adam really gave you and painted the picture for what his story was all about prior to his transformation. Know your why. Man, was there a rock bottom moment in there? You better believe it. Did he make his why just about wanting to lose weight and look good and feel better like all of us? No, he went way beyond that. Gaining insight and healing old wounds. That's stage number 3. And these are all things we find that with people that are successful. And Adam did that. He said, you know what? There's some symptomology here that's representing that there's something else broken under the surface. That's what I need to address. And I love how he talks about, if I'm going to basically go hard with my nutrition, I need to go hard also in my emotional journey. And there was some surrender to both of those areas, another hugely key point. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some questions, but next time you and I pick up, what we're going to spend some time doing is talking about then how your life started to change through the process of weight loss, how it affected your relationships, how it affected your identity. We've touched on that, but we'll just do more of it. Man, we are so, so blessed to just have you share this part 1 here tonight. And I know we got some questions, and my moderator, if I mentioned here earlier today on the promo, we have John Gomez, who is going to sooner than later be an emerging therapist here in the Sacramento community that you guys are all going to want to know about. He is so gracious enough to come tonight and to moderate this broadcast. He's following all of your questions. He's got a few of those that he's picked out. We can't get to all of them because we got to end this thing right before 7. But it looks like we got a little under 10 minutes. John, give me a question. Adam, you and I will kind of do like the 90 seconds, or you'll do the 90-second version, and we can continue this conversation once we end on the Facebook thread too. So yeah, what do you got, John?
There's a lot of comments like assuring him and his story and everything, but not a lot of questions. But I have specific questions.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great, John.
My first one is, he said something about remembering what you want most.
Yes.
In the face of remembering or wanting something in the moment.
Yeah.
So what are specific techniques people can do to remember what they want most while they're in that very moment of wanting something?
Were you able to hear that question from John?
So,
he
was
great question.
In regards to the statement of choosing between what you want now and what you want most, how can someone, create habits for, remembering that? And that is basically, you set an intention for every part of your day, right? When you get up, you wake up and you do a gratitude affirmation, and then
that's something that you do every day, or most days.
I wake up every day and say that no matter what happens, I have love, health, and purpose in my life. And those are 3 gifts that not everybody on this planet has the opportunity to experience, let alone have all of them.
And why is that impactful for you to focus your attention on that?
Well, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in negativity. I mean, social media, which listen, I am the worst when it comes to being addicted to social media, can just create this false sense of failure for people. I don't measure up to anybody, and those are the least important things. Is measuring up to somebody else's false sense of identity on social media. But if I can wake up and say, no matter what happens today, I start and end my day with love, health, and purpose. Those are true things to be grateful for. And then set an intention for your morning. Say, today, this is how I'm going to live my life in terms of my behavior towards my health and my behavior towards others.
Make it an action point.
Make it an action point. Say, I'm going to eat this way because this is what I want my life to look like. I'm going to other way because this is how I want to be perceived, and this is the person that I want to be in terms of the way that I impact others in this life. And then do that after lunch, right before lunch, and then right before dinner, and then when you go to bed at night, do a gratitude affirmation. Again, what were you grateful for that day? What happened that day that you can say, today was worth it?
And let me just say, folks, if you guys want to know how big this last 2 minutes was and what you just heard, this is everything that's exploding in the mental health community. There's mindfulness that talks about these principles, right? There's being in the moment. We are living in such a fast-paced, overstimulated society. We are terrified of slowing down, catching our breath, and having silence, right? And what we need to do, though, is we have to do, as you mentioned earlier, do what makes you feel uncomfortable. You have to get in those moments. So at first it might seem like a practice of that even once a day seems like a big ask. Well, guess what? You have to start somewhere. And these are the keys, and it's a great key. You must slow down and take stake in life a bit, and not just take stake in life. What you're also hearing Adam do is he's taking each moment to connect his actions back to his greater purpose. And so he has identified a greater purpose that he's living now. He's a coach. He's a speaker. Can you see why? And the reason that he's really taking time to connect those meals is that there's just something that's transformational when you're able to say, this thing right here is putting me closer to be on the path to living out my values. And guess what? For some of you, you have big dreams and you're saying to yourself, well, yeah, the next meal that I eat, if I do the gratitude list, that's great, but I'm still like 400 meals away from actually seeing my dream. But you have to love the journey. And I could really hear this in Adam's story, that he really loved and appreciated the journey. I'm sure more as he went along, and today he would tell you. But again, that's just a great tip. Is there another question, John, or any other? What's the general consensus we have on Facebook comments? You said a lot of appreciation.
Resonating with the story.
Resonating.
With the story, everything, yeah.
That is it. I'm telling you, Adam, I'm resonating with it too. I mean, if anyone is just new to this story, I grew up overweight kid. This is why I do this stuff, man. So I'm hearing your story and I'm like, oh my gosh, and the same too with like the addiction tendencies, all of that. Dad was an alcoholic. I know I got those tendencies in it. And I love, can you tell me again what you said earlier about the way I heard it was like you were almost saying that you can channel that addiction in a positive direction, and you called it the definition of passion. Give me that one more time. What was that you said?
Yeah, so, like I said, I'm a really talented addict. I used to have a very destructive addiction, and now I have a very constructive addiction. And I think that the difference is that addiction is defined by something that you do on a regular basis that is destructive or harmful to your life, and you can't stop doing it, right? Well, you remove that destructive nature from it, and it becomes constructive, and then that is passion. That is something that leads you towards a bigger, more connected life, right? I will never run into a problem being addicted to eating a plant-based diet. And I really believe that the simplest change on your fork makes the most profound change in your life.
Yes.
It has allowed me to be open. It has allowed me to help my twin brother, who in January of last year was a 270-pound type 2 diabetic. And I said, Bob, enough. You're coming to Santa Monica, live with me. Just live my lifestyle for 6 months and see what happens. He moved in. 3 weeks later, type 2 diabetes is completely gone. And as of today, he's under 200 pounds for the first time in probably almost 15 years. He's also, he's this amazing animal welfare and animal rights advocate. He is at the LA, the Animal Save Vigil every Sunday night when the pigs are brought into the slaughterhouse to be killed. They're out there giving them water as they're spending their last moments. He's spending these pigs' last moments with them, showing them love for the first time ever. He's a warrior, and he's got this amazing show coming out called The Road Less Eaten, where he's highlighting how you can travel the world as a vegan.
Very cool. Where's that going to be on?
Well, he's been talking with like CBS and Live Kindly and all these other people, and so they're in the middle. He's only done the first 2 pilot episodes. He did Israel and Ireland, but I mean he's one of these people that is really. He got into it for the health aspect, and then it just all became about the animals. And he's a warrior on the front lines, man. And he says that he's a Padawan and I'm a Jedi Master. Dude, he is a Jedi Knight by every sense of the word.
That is awesome. I saw that on one of your photos on your page. Now I understand the reference. That's so cool. My gosh, man. Again, talk about gratitude. the gratitude I have for you, Adam. Oh man, I'm taken aback, man. I really am. You know, I get a chance to get invited into people's stories on a daily basis, and I'm never I never stop being grateful for what that's like. I'm grateful for you taking the time tonight to just do what I really hope is our part one. We'll do a part two.
We'll do a part two.
We'll do a part two. So yeah, we spoke it as an intention. It's now happening. But again, just thank you so much for the story that you've shared tonight. My big thing is just to be able to tell you, you are a big fish. You are the big fish. And sometimes as we rewrite our story, we need people to reflect back to us what they're noticing and witnessing in order to really say, wow, maybe the new chapter has been written and something is emerging that I never knew was there. That's one thing I want to say. I see you as being a revolutionary speaker, coach. And what I love is that you just get it, man. You get that this is so much bigger than weight loss. You get it's about transforming lives. Now, what an inspirational story. Again, if you have comments and questions, put them on this thread, and let's see if we can't keep the dialogue going. Of course, we'll do the part two. You guys can join in for that. We'll be announcing that here shortly, sometime hopefully in February or March. And again, Adam, how can people get in touch with you if they want more information about like your coaching services or just about how to follow you and all the stuff that you're up to?
So I have a Facebook page called Plant-Based Addict. That's also my Instagram handle is Plant-Based Addict. You can just send me a friend request on Adam Sud. I'm getting close to the friend limit, but
I saw that. You're almost there, man. Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. You follow me on Plant-Based Addict and we'll connect. Send me a Facebook message.
Very cool.
And, I'm just so grateful to be on, this show and to share my story with you. I know you had Mihao last week talking about the yo-yo effect, which is just going to be such an exciting...
You'll be in that documentary too. Got to plug that. Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to fly out to Chicago to do an interview with him for that too. So I'm really excited.
I'm excited. I was interviewed for it. I'm not going to say that I'm going to be in it, but hopefully I will be. You
will be, yeah.
To be a part of it, and he's a great guy. And like I say, thank you so much for reaching out and allowing me to be on this show, sharing my story, being humble, connecting to who I was. That's part of my recovery. To not get too cocky with, and because arrogance is just, it's one of my demons,
we all got them though, right?
That I am, I'm only 5 years out of almost ending my life, and being able to share my story, it means everything to me.
Well, again, I not only do I want to do a part two, but I want to connect with you some more. Again, the more stuff that I hear about you and I need to connect, and however we can just, partner up and do stuff to kind of help people and motivate them and inspire them. I'm all about it. This is a community effort. And again, thanks for being a part of my community tonight. And we will be following up with you, and we will be doing a part two shortly. For all of you, again, thank you so much for tuning in to this Facebook Live broadcast. We will be back again next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Matt Weaver, another amazing transformation story. Lost over, I believe, 250, 300 pounds. Amazing story. I started and launched a brand as a gym owner where he's transformed thousands and thousands of lives. You don't want to miss that one. Again, Adam, thank you so much, man. And I look forward to connecting with you when we hang up here. And have a great night.
All right, you're welcome. I just saw my mom said something, so I'm just going to say to my mom, I love you. Thank you.
Oh, very cool. Thanks for, and again, what an amazing story. Talk about love from a parent. That's another part of this inspiration too, is hearing all about that. So glad that your mom was able to see this. You guys, everyone have a great night, and we will be back next Tuesday.